Folks, we are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. I am Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR. Below me, which is going to sound bad when I call him my weekly work spouse, is Bad Mike, North Texas RPG Con.
Hello.
And with us is none other than Joe Bloch, the Greyhawk Grognard. This has been a requested guest. And Mike, stop trying to get sponsored for liquor. Stop it.
Stop it. Maybe somebody will take pity on me and just send me a bottle. I mean, come on.
All right,
come on,
Mike,
folks.
You know what, Mike? One day we'll put the P.O. box for North Texas RPG.
If the pundits can get 1,000 subscribers this week, surely I can get one bottle of booze. Come on.
We set our goals really, really low, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
One bottle.
Extremely low.
Now, long story short, I have known Joe. Well, actually, I first met Joe in person at the release of Gygax magazine.
Gygax magazine, right in Brooklyn, wasn't it?
Yes. The line from hell, and then it was like, well, this was kind of anticlimactic. It was crowded, but it was anticlimactic once I finally got in.
Because it was we're all just watching a TV screen.
Yeah, and we're there. Why are we watching a TV screen? But it was cool. So that's when I first got to meet the Greyhawk Grognard, Joe. But I knew Joe for years prior to that because we were both very active bloggers, and occasionally both very opinionated. But hey, that's just part and parcel of being a blogger.
You're much more opinionated and active a blogger than I am these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's a lot of the blogging community is not what it was in the heyday of the early days of Blogger, and was it Feedburner? Was like how everybody was getting their notifications that there was a new blog post up. So it'd be like, oh my god, Tenkar has his third post of the day, and oh look, Joe has his second. And I mean, it was going crazy because you got instant feedback kind of with that. You're like, you look at it and go, my God, I had 520 hits in my Feedburner feed alone. And then, of course, they killed it like they killed Google Plus because Google kills things that don't make them money but do make people happy.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's just – but we have YouTube, right? So I can't complain because YouTube makes them money.
Yes. And
it makes some people happy.
Yeah, that was back in the day when you would have a hit counter on the bottom of your blog.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And you hit F5 to make it go.
Does it count me if I keep on hitting my own?
I remember when I had a short-lived blog that I probably wrote everything I needed to write like in 1 week, and I was happy when I hit 24 people. I was like, man, I'm really reaching the masses here, you know.
Well, you know, I remember two things that comes to my blog that were impactful. When I reviewed Raji's Grindhouse, or not Grindhouse, oh God, his Temple of Elemental, no, his Tomb of Horrors,
Grinding Gear.
Yeah. I reviewed Grinding Gear, and oh my God, I had 60 hits in those first 20 hours.
Those are heady days.
I was like, holy crap. And then I reviewed the Pathfinder Beginner box, and that was my first time where I got like 1,000 hits. And I was like, oh my God. And I will still say that probably the only good thing that came out of Paizo was the Pathfinder Beginner box, because it actually made Pathfinder old school usable.
They had a game mastery guide, which was really cool because it wasn't very game specific. You could use it with just about anything because it was mostly just a bunch of random tables.
True. And I'm
not a big Paizo Pathfinder fan, but I liked that book.
Oh yes, click the subscribe button because we are very close. We're about a dozen away from giving away $500 in drive-through RPG Now gift certificates, or actually $525 because I owe an extra $5 because I think we'll just get this out of the way. This isn't part of RPG Stupid or RPG Great, but a tip of my virtual hat to Benoit for hitting another week of on-time stretch goals. So for the naysayers, including myself, we can all eat shit because Ben's doing fucking great. So
it's embarrassing now that we had a contest to see when he would give up. I'm embarrassed now.
You're not done yet.
Well, I mean,
nobody went this long.
No, nobody went 5 weeks or 6 weeks. Nobody. So yeah, Ben, keep making us eat crow. It's awesome.
Yes, I am very happy to admit when I am wrong. Well, no, not necessarily happy, but I'm very willing to admit when I am wrong. And I was wrong. Mike was wrong. Gladly wrong. Thankfully wrong. So, 2 thumbs up. So, as we start delving into Joe Bloch, I'm going to pull something up because, and this is just me remarking as a fellow blogger. This isn't your first blog. Technically, it wasn't in a Blogspot address before.
Yeah, it was on Blogspot before, and then they did something behind the scenes. I don't even remember what now. They did something behind the scenes that broke like everything I did. All my widgets and stuff, so I ported it over to greyhawkgrognard.com. They did it was some technical thing, and it just screwed everything up. So it was just easier. I have more control over it here. It's in the long run, I wish I'd started it here because I did lose people when I moved, but I still have that like pinned post up there saying change your link.
Right. Please kindly move to here. As opposed to with Glenn Hallstrom, for years after I went to Tenkar, I'm still on Blogger, but I have my own domain, tenkarstavern.com. So I no longer use tenkarstavern.blogspot.com. But Glenn would always use that whenever we were doing a podcast. And don't forget to go to Tenkar's Tavern. I'm like, Glenn, it doesn't even work. Somebody else actually squatted on it for a little bit. That's the reason why I had to change from that one. My original Tenkar's Tavern.blogspot, one of the third-party apps that I had been using, I forget which one it was. It got hacked. The actual server for that got hacked, which then hacked my blog. People go to my blog, and for like 3 days, all it would do was just pop up advertisements, and it would automatically redirect. So I had to like go in, copy everything from the HTML file, and then port it over to Tenkar's Tavern 2, and then I was like, I can't even redirect people from the original. So for those who are into the old school blogging, it was a pain in the ass.
Yes.
That's all I'll say.
But it's still, that was better than the forums, which came before it. And now, everything's moving on to YouTube. I'm kind of segregating my social media stuff because I still put like substantive stuff on greyhawkgrognard.com on the blog. Like I'm still doing this series of Dragon magazine articles, which are just kind of like they're made to look like old Dragon magazine articles, but it's subtly changed here and there. So it's like new classes and stuff that would be a download. I will put up on the blog, and I'm trying to do that every like Tuesday or something. And then the stuff that I used to do on the blog, like the commentary and the going discussions about Greyhawk modules and stuff like that, that I'm moving over to the YouTube channel. So I'm not abandoning it, but I'm keeping things focused on where they work the best.
Oh, that's been part of the process that I've gone through with first podcast and then the YouTube. There is certain content that works much better, audio, visual, and it doesn't necessarily convert as well to a blog post.
If you've got like a lot of, and on the reverse, if you've got like a lot of numbers, a lot of tables, maps, things like that, works better in a blog post. So I'm trying to make that distinction, and I'm trying to keep it active on both sides.
Yeah, John Miller said some of the old forums are still running strong. OD&D discussion boards, for example, certainly. And I'm not saying they aren't, but they're, in comparison to the traffic they used to do, they are dying. In comparison to what blogs used to do, blogs are, for the most part, dying. I've kept my traffic strong, stronger than it had been, I'll be honest with you. But that's probably because there's a lot less competition in our hobby now for a blog. This is where everybody's going right now. They're going to YouTube.
Well, you also post like 8 times a day, so.
Not anymore. No. I'm 1 time a day. I've actually missed like 3 days this year, and not because of any kind of medical emergencies. Although one was intoxication and just total fucking blanking out. But it's just like, it's like you have a busy day, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, it's 12:30. Oh fuck, I never actually posted. Son of a! I thought I did.
See, that's when you post and you set it to retrograde it. You set it to go live at 11:59 the day before.
Sneaky.
Yeah. Nah, it's okay. I suck it up now. I will say though, I haven't missed since I started doing the daily YouTube. I haven't missed a YouTube, so at least I can claim that now for fame, as such as it will.
Yeah,
well, I was say, since you haven't been sick, you haven't missed too much. So
no.
We're talking since July last year.
Last August.
Yeah,
end of last August. So about a year. That was the hospitalization where they were like, well, you really didn't need to get hospitalized. You're right. Your heart was working perfectly fine. You were dehydrated and low blood sugar. I was like, all right. But we did find out that you have a totally occluded left carotid artery. What does that mean? Well, it's totally blocked. What does that mean? It means we do nothing. Because your right one is compensated. It's like, okay. I guess a low cholesterol diet from now on, I guess is what we're talking about, pretty much. Okay. So, yeah, no. The last 12 months have actually been very good. I have no complaints. And I'm not going to pop the art up now, but the James Shields did an amazing cover for what's going to be the new print or the new edition of Swords and Wizardry Continual Light. And
yeah, I've used him in some of my projects. He's a great artist.
It's good stuff. Yeah, James is always such a talented guy. So,
yeah, no, and with this one, he kind of like dedicated it to my niece Shannon, because James did the first cover, but his first cover was actually stock art. And when I printed my my initial proof copies of Swords and Wizardry Continual Light and got them delivered, I had to pick up my niece from school out in Long Island, so I drove out there and get back to the house. Me and my wife and Shannon were talking. Well, Shannon, look at this. Look at Uncle. She already knew about Swords and Wizardry Light. She figured Uncle wrote that for her because it was 4 pages, and I could teach her to read 4 pages, and therefore she could play D&D. She was like 5.5. So now she was like 6.5, and she looks at the cover and she holds it up like this, and she's like, "Auntie, this cover sells." I mean, with the energy of a first grader, I was like, "What the heck?" She's like, "This is amazing." So when James did the new cover, he's like, "Hey, yeah, I want your niece. I need her feedback." And she was just like, I was told, I sent it to my sister. The feedback was literally Shannon staring at it, her mouth opening up, going, "Wow." Like, "Mommy, that's amazing." Like, so I'm very happy with it. So of course now I'm chomping at the bit to as is my layout guy Jeff Jones to get this. We have some, we want to get it out. We'd love to have some proof copies available at Gamehole. I don't know if we will. It might cut it close. We'll see. But it's just such a beautiful artwork on that cover, and the layout I've seen has been awesome. So knock on wood. But enough about me. We should be talking about.
Yeah, let's let
Speaking
Joe.
of covers,
It'd be nice to talk about Joe a little bit.
Yeah.
It's on the show.
Well, again, the problem is I've known Joe for so many years, and we've spoken in the past, and we speak at cons. that it's just kind of like a continuation of that.
Right.
So it's like, and
but like when you were talking about the covers, it's funny because I just did a Kickstarter for 2 books, the Book of Lost Lore and the Book of Lost Beasts, and everybody and it blew up. It's like it is my most successful one ever. Yeah, if you scroll down, you'll probably see it. And it is like it's been my most successful, most money raised, all that other good stuff. And all the feedback I've gotten was, these covers look so great. This is why I backed it.
Well, now listen, that's something that I've always found very interesting about your work. When you do a Kickstarter, it's written. All right, we've spoken about this. You don't do the I have this great idea, please back my great idea. You have the great idea, you write it, and you kickstart it for the art expense.
The art and the editing, right. I don't need to get paid for my work of writing, and even when I have there's some books that I've done that I didn't kickstart because I had enough money sitting in the bank that I didn't need to raise the money.
Right.
So, I only want to go to the well when I really need to. And in this particular case, oh yeah, there you go. You got the covers up. But in this case, I would post that image and people were just like, oh my God, these look so amazing. And it's also going to have the orange spine.
Nice.
Yeah. So you're going to know exactly what it is. The PDFs are, I gave out like a pre-prod version of the PDFs to the Kickstarter backers. So we've gotten a little feedback about a couple typos that slipped through here or there. I want to make sure that's all taken care of before I do the print.
Right. I gotta grab my copies. I got your email, and I was just like, I'm running around. I'll get to it. I'm like Mike.
Well, you got till Friday.
Yeah. It's like with Mike. It's like, oh, wait a second. How many Kickstarters have I not read emails on that I have stuff waiting for me?
Yeah. But the final PDFs are going out on Saturday to all the backers, and this weekend I'm going to be doing the print files and submitting them and getting the proofs and all that stuff. So we were originally planning to go to give everybody their stuff in March, and now it looks like they're going to get it this October. So I love when I go early, and I'm pretty sure I haven't gone late on any one of my stuff, at least for the PDF. But I love it when I go early. I love to be able to over provide for the backers, because this is all their stuff. I view it as they're giving me money to make this real.
Right.
And I'm very thankful to them, because it's not like, there's some of the bigger companies that I'm not going to name any, but they obviously don't need to do a Kickstarter because they ship the books within a couple of weeks. They have them sitting in a warehouse and they're running a freaking Kickstarter. And that to me defeats the purpose. I run Kickstarters when I need to, because I don't have the money to pay an artist to do a kick-ass, cover or interiors. In this case, the covers were a special thing, but or interior art, or I got to pay for an editor. So, I only want to go to the well when I need to make the book real. And I
can understand it.
I'm just really thankful for all the people who do back my stuff, because, it is a niche of a niche.
Oh yeah. It's a small corner of a small pond.
Right.
And I mean, I don't think you can overfish it. It's not one of those zero-sum equations where it's like, oh, well, the Greyhawk Grognard had a Kickstarter out, which means that my Kickstarter is going to fail.
Right.
He took away all the funding. It doesn't work that way.
Who's going to say, oh, I backed Adventures Dark and Deep, I can't back Chalt. Or Chalt, right. Or whatever the hell it's called.
I can't pronounce it. Listen, I can't even pronounce his publishing company. What's his publishing company? It's not an insult, V. It's just that I can't pronounce it.
It took me 55 years to figure out how to pronounce Cthulhu. So
don't feel bad. I don't think I ever got it right until I went to a convention and heard it properly pronounced. And I was like, it isn't Cthulhu? but why not?
Yeah.
Because you have to remember, too, our generation, when we learned RPGs, we learned them from our friends, and we learned how to pronounce words to the best of our ability. There was no phonetic, way to look at it and go, well, I got it on my phone. Let me hear how this word is supposed to sound. We didn't have that. You didn't have anybody telling you the definitions were. A lot of this stuff, especially with the Gygaxian prose, you would read it and go, all right, based upon the context of everything else in this area, on this page, I suspect it means X.
Right.
You were right 8 out of 9 times, maybe.
There's a great meme that's floating around on Facebook that, don't feel ashamed at mispronouncing words. It means that you learn by reading.
That's actually pretty accurate.
I love that.
And don't be afraid about not knowing the definitions of words, I guess, goes along with that, because there are a lot of Gygaxian words that you were not going to find in a pocket dictionary. Maybe you'd find it in the Oxford Dictionary, but you weren't going to find it in a pocket dictionary. You weren't going to be able to look up all these polearms and see what they were until you got the polearm book from Palladium, the little weapons book, and I was like, oh, this is what it looks like? I had no effing clue.
Until they did the same thing in Unearthed Arcana, yeah. John Miller, let me give you a tip. There actually was a pronunciation guide in Dragon Magazine in the early 100s. It's Ayus, apparently. And if you can probably find it online. I forget the issue, but if you go to the Dragon Dex, you'll find it. But there was a pronunciation guide, and it has most of the Greyhawk stuff in there. Like I remember when first time I went to GaryCon, and I was talking to Luke, and I'm talking about, oh yeah, and I do this about the Flatus, and he's like, the what? The Flatus. Like, no, it's Flaness. And it's like I'm being corrected by Luke freaking Gygax about the pronunciation of something that I've named my entire social media thing about.
So Luke said it was what now? So
it's Flaness.
It's Flaness. Okay, so I'll have to remember Flaness from that.
Yeah. So I think finesse, the Flaness. Okay.
Right,
Flaness.
and it's Ayus. Is the way to pronounce it.
I think I always pronounced it Ayus. So I guess
I always went Ayus. What else? But I didn't do Flaness.
I always did Ias.
Really?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of these. There's a lot of words that, from that era. If you came in that time frame, there were a lot of words that the pronunciation depended on your group, your region, and we didn't know. There was no pronunciation guide in general put out there for any of us. John says Dragon Magazine number 93.
That's the one, yeah. So yeah, in the early 80s, you did get a pronunciation guide, and I was vindicated because it says it can be either drow or dro, and I always go with dro, and everybody corrects me, and I had to look it up, and it's like, no, Frank Metzner says I'm right. So.
See, I was always drow, but again, we didn't know. We didn't know what the intention was, because unless you went to a convention and heard it from the author's mouth, you wouldn't know.
Right.
So again, it's that, to me, that's as much a part of gaming history as anything else, which I find to be interesting.
The mispronunciations.
Yes. Now, one of the things that you're best known for is Adventures Dark and Deep, which is almost like Marvel's What If. Like, what if Gary Gygax had actually gone through with a lot of the classes he had mentioned in Dragon Magazine in 66, 67, around there.
There were a couple articles in the early 80s to mid 80s where he laid out what the future of the game was going to be like. In one of them, he had a whole list of new classes. He was talking about organization, all kinds of different things in a couple of different articles. And then afterwards on various forums, like Dragon's Foot and places like that. So, what I did was I gathered up all that stuff. Anything he had ever talked about with his second edition that he never got to do, I collected it all. and then I started with the first additional the first edition rules, and I just made all the changes and additions from that. And that was Adventures Dark and Deep, the original thing. Since then, I've kind of branched out a bunch into different directions and stuff. So it's, you know, some of the newer books, like the Golden Throne of Justice, the Golden Scroll of Justice, which is my Oriental Adventures based in China. You know, that was pretty much my own thing, even though it's under the Adventures Dark and Deep banner. But those 3 books are what my best guess as to what Gary's second edition was going to be like. But there's so much in there that you can take and run with. Like the skill system is one that he wrote for Castles and Crusades, because he had done this. It was a free download that they did. It was OGL, and basically the idea was you would pay XP to learn skills. You know, so if you want to learn blacksmithing, it costs you 1,000 XP. I took that and kind of ran with it and really beefed it out a lot, and used the specialists, you know, the specialist NPCs like savants and Fletchers and things like that from the original Dungeon Master's Guide, and I fleshed all them out as the skills. So that you if you want to learn blacksmithing, you can spend, you know, 1,500 XP and you get to make this much stuff each month. But if you want to get a second level, you can spend more XP and you make more stuff. And it's just so versatile. That ended up being the basis of the Kung Fu system in Scroll of Golden Justice, because any class can spend XP to learn a form of Kung Fu. And it gives you benefits and buffs in combat, and they stack, and you know, you can get more levels in different things, and you can learn some in this form and some in this form. And it's what he wrote in that small little free download that I'm sure almost nobody saw. That one little kernel that he came up with of spend XP to learn skills is just so versatile when you take it and run with it. That's what I love about Gary's stuff. I mean, he came up with a lot of great ideas. His execution isn't always the best. He can get a little overly complicated, but you know, the ideas that he's got in there, really, you can really take them and turn them into great things. So, you know, that's just my spiel about, you know, being inspired by him on that score.
Well, let me ask you something. Sorry, let me ask something.
No, go ahead.
So we were talking about this last week about, actually we talked about it quite a bit, is Dangerous Journeys, and what a stylistic change it was from D&D, and how we don't know anybody that played it. We never played it. I tried to read it, couldn't understand it. Most people couldn't understand it. You've done a ton of reading of Gary's stuff, and obviously you're well versed in his stuff. What do you think he was doing with that? What was the impetus to create such, I don't know what you'd say, complicated game, an unplayable game? I mean, I don't know what you'd call it. It's a tough game to wrap your head around. And Eric and I both say that we don't know anybody that plays it. And that's kind of the mark of a game, because I know people that play Marvel superheroes. I know people that play Gangbusters.
I love Marvel superheroes.
Yeah.
I mean, to this day, I would play Marvel superheroes.
I know people that play Twilight 2000. I mean, all these old games. I don't know of any groups that play Dangerous Journeys. So give us the scoop on that. What was going on with that?
Well, the impetus was he felt compelled. He had to write something that was completely different from D&D, because he had just got fired and he didn't want to get sued. And he got sued anyway. And, you know, so it didn't matter. They were
dangerous dimensions, D&D. It kind of might have been asking for it.
But, well, before that, he came out with Cyborg Commando.
God, I know. I own it.
By the way, nobody plays that either. So there's another one. Yeah, there's another one.
Oh, my God. But Dangerous Journeys does have its fans. You know, there are people who really, really love it. Based on, because I read it as research for Adventures Dark and Deep. And I hate to say it, but I am very sure, having read through the entire thing multiple times, that when he said he lost all of his notes for things like the Jester and the Savant and all that stuff, he wasn't... I think he in reality actually just converted it over. Because if you read through a lot of the skill descriptions in Dangerous Journeys, you convert the percentages to D20 things. It works too well. You can retrofit it too well into D&D for it to be too much of a coincidence. It's and I know why he would have to say it. He was always a company man. For the longest time, as soon as the lawsuit from the Tolkien estate hit, it's like, oh, wait, no, Tolkien never had anything to do with anything we ever did. This, that was nothing. That was never an inspiration. It's like, dude, you had hobbits and Ents.
Yes.
Come on. Who are you kidding? But he was a very good company man. He would toe the company line to a fault. And in this case, he was, obviously very burned by the lawsuit and everything, and getting ousted from TSR. So I know why he would do it. But just looking at the mechanics, my personal feeling is that that was just a conversion of the original notes that he had. And then he had to make obviously a replacement for the big system.
So he makes. I mean, he comes from D&D, which is a beloved system, and he makes this. And I mean, there was several supplements for it. I've got them all. It's a big stack.
Yeah, you'll go right back there.
So I mean, yeah. So, but like I said, nobody ever plays it. Nobody plays it at the time. I didn't know anybody played it. Now, you said, like, I know there's fans of the work, but I don't know of any ongoing campaigns. It never gets run at conventions. Did he play test it? I mean, I'm just curious how you put this game together, but then they release it, and then here we are 30 years later, nobody plays it. Now, I know part of it's because maybe the books are hard to find, but I'm just saying I've really never known anybody that played it, except as I know a guy that played it once as an existential experiment because he wanted to see if he could actually run a campaign, and he ran a few sessions, and he was like, "It's not worth the work. It's a lot of work." He said it was a lot of work, but why did he make a system that was so unplayable? I guess it's
nobody goes out of their way to make a system that's unplayable. Uh-huh. I'm sure the people who did Rollmaster, or Castles and Crusades, not Castles and Crusades, Chivalry and Sorcery.
Another one.
The early version. I'm sure they didn't set out to make something that you couldn't really play.
Right, but, and for them, they could play it. They knew the system. They designed it, so I didn't see that.
Right, they knew how to play it. So if you know how to play it, it's playable. Mm-hmm. So it's but in terms of why he would do it, it was a time in his gaming evolution where things were getting more complicated. It was right. Well, games as a whole were getting more complicated. You mentioned Twilight 2000. That's a really complicated game. Traveler 2300 is another one like that. There's a lot of little fiddly bits and stuff, and that's what was happening in the late 80s. So it was largely a product of its time. You don't really see we want to strip everything down, simplify stuff until you get to the 90s. And personally, I think that White Wolf had a lot to do with that, because their vampire stuff and their werewolf stuff, the system itself is pretty streamlined. Yeah. It has to be, because they were doing it as a LARP. And I think that was a big influence on the later trend to simplify games. Like, a lot of people mistakenly, in my opinion, think that the OSR is all about simplified rules, stripped down rules, fast play rules. And I know your big thing is Swords and Wizardry. And that is in that vein. But if you're talking about old school stuff, it's got to include a D&D first edition, which
is complicated as hell. And just since you brought that up, I mean, I look at AD&D 1E, and not necessarily the player's handbook, which is fairly well organized and goes from topic to topic with some kind of sensibility to it. And then you go to the DMG, where things seem to be haphazardly placed, and you don't have a consistent resolution system. You have combats at D20. However, if we're going to do unarmed combat, we're no longer using D20s. Oh, what about overbearing? Hey, these percentage. It is, to me, I look at the Dungeon Master's Guide in retrospect as this was Gary taking everything in the kitchen sink, throwing it out there, and expecting groups not to use everything after telling them AD&D 1E is supposed to be run as written.
Right.
So it was a little conflicting.
And it's also a lot of errata. If the Dungeon Master's Guide is a lot of errata for the Player's Handbook and the Monster Manual. Mm-hmm. Like when you look at this, like there's a separate there's a separate section about spell effects. It's like, you could cast this underwater. This has this effect. Use this table to summon thing. Why isn't this in the spell description? It's because they didn't think of it, and they had a couple of years in between the publishing, and then they realized, we got to include this. We'll throw it in for the DM. It's a lot of that. And when I did Adventures Dark and Deep, I took out that stuff and I put it back where it belonged. A lot of the work was taking stuff from the DM's guide and putting it into the player's manual where it belonged in the right place. So all those additional notes about spells and junk like that, that's always, that's included in, in the actual spell description. So it's not like bifurcated.
Yep.
You are right in your comment that Frank wrote for a system that would have sold 1 million copies if he'd written a cookbook, if he'd written listen, one letter on every page and labeled it the Immortal set, people still would have been like, this was awesome. It's my fault for not understanding it. I mean,
I never played Basic. The only Basic I ever played was the Blue Box, Holmes Basic. I never played the Frank Mensner BECMI stuff because I was playing AD&D. I was playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Why the hell would I need to play Basic?
Right, Basic was for the babies. That was for the kids. I was a teenager. Come on, I was even embarrassed that I didn't get my Basic set till I found it at a discount store with the notch cut into the side of it. I guess because it was
the remainder. Yeah, remainder.
The remainder. Yeah. That's how I got mine.
Because I started out as a wargamer. When I was like 10 years old, I was playing Avalon Hill and SPI games. And we found this, we had heard about D&D in various places in catalogs and and my friend and I got the white box. And we spent like a whole weekend trying to figure out what the hell this was. And we couldn't make heads or tails of it. Because we didn't have chainmail for one thing. And so very soon thereafter, we got the Holmes Basic, which I think is brilliant. I am such a huge fan. To this day, I love Holmes Basic. I love Blue Home. I forget who did it, but it was an expansion of Holmes Basic through like level 15 or whatever. I actually printed it out. It's in my Holmes box right now. I love that. It was such a clean, simple, it was a learning game. It was very, very, very cool. I wish they had kept that and, gone with that for if they had to have a Basic alongside Advanced, I wish they had gone with that and used that as the basis of it.
Well, it probably would have been a bit more compatible, I guess, or...
I mean, even then it wasn't, mechanically, it's still only, I think it only went up to Armor Class 9. I'd have to double check. It's been a long time. But, but it was more of a feel. It just felt easier. It felt more approachable, I guess is the word. And then we went almost straight from that to AD.
Well, I think Frank, the whole intention with Frank was we are going to get a parallel line fully going to AD&D, and therefore we will double our market. And in theory, it's like, well, for those that don't want to play from hardback books, we got the box games, because I guess boxes and hardback books are going to sell to different markets.
I think too, because you alluded to the fact that AD&D was supposed to be like you must play the rules as written. This is for conventions, and these are the rules. Whereas the whole Basic line was supposed to be more fungible, and the DM can kind of twist it and make it what he wants, like the old Lightbox was. But in reality, that never happened, and everybody kind of focused on making new stuff for AD&D, and it kind of lost that, that mystique. And I think that is another example of what I said earlier about Gygax being a company man. When he had that lawsuit with Arneson, part of the reason we have AD&D was because Gary wanted to make a clean break. It's like,
right.
Dave helped me with D&D, but this is AD&D and it's its own thing and has nothing to do with him. Obviously, that didn't, the court disagreed, but I think that was its genesis, and I think that's where you get that idea that one game is for one purpose. Conventions, tournaments, play it as written, whereas the other one is supposed to be more soft and fungible, and DMs can go wild with it. But, when you just take a look at any Dragon magazine from the era, people are just making stuff for AD&D, and there's almost nothing for BDCMI.
Now, in a way, though, what Lorraine did to Gary with second edition is what he tried to do with first edition. It's just the same thing. Write him out of the game. So, it's like, hey, let's get the 2E and get Gary's name off the books, and therefore we don't have to pay him. And, it's a little bit of, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And generally speaking, in our hobby, I think there's other times in our generation or in this current era, it's like somebody pulls some bullshit, and then it's like, oh, that bullshit came right back to you in the end. Go figure. So.
The D&D must be played by the rules. So that's actually true. And the reason is, if you read some old issues of Alarms Excursions, the first few issues, Gary popping on there going, man, you guys are doing some great work here. This is awesome. I love A&E crowd. You guys are playing D&D and talking again. This is when D&D came out, and he's all excited. And so those Alarms Excursions rolled along. If you read the first 30 issues, more and more people are saying, well, here, I don't like this, or the Paladin doesn't work, or the Ranger doesn't. Here's my own class. Here, I made a class of Gesture. I made a class of the Execution, this and that. So Gary rolls in about issue 19, 20, and starts ripping them and says, I don't want you to change my game. The game is already written. Here's the rules. I don't appreciate all this shit. And a lot of people wonder what was the deal with this. Why did he do this? And I think, there's you could say a lot of things, but I think one of the things was he realized that these people could make their own game. they could do the same. Right. They could do just what he did. And I think there was a little bit of professional jealousy in there, maybe a little narcissism.
Oh. Well, I'm still here.
He was like, I don't want these people to threaten legal action. He said, if anybody here in A&E, you can read the issues. He said, anybody here wants to do their own game, our legal department's waiting for you to come out with that game, and we're gonna. And so they had these funny posts on. Or if you know what A&E is, it was basically all these articles sent into Legal, and she would compile them all into this big giant thing and staple.
It was a zine,
and then it went out to everybody on the mailing list, and so. Yeah, it's a zine. It's basically the early zines. And so people on A&E would post and say, just to get back at Greg Gygax, photocopy the brown box rules and hand them to everybody at every convention. That's how ugly it got back and forth. They were just sitting there going, you need to pirate his rules. Don't let Gary make a cent from the $10 or whatever the brown box was. But that's how heated it got because the accusations flew back and forth. So he actually, there's lots of stories about why he was you got to play by the rules. And you can speculate, however, what you think it was. No, when he didn't. That was the great part. He didn't at all.
Play by the rules.
No, he didn't at all. He definitely had his own thing. But for whatever reason, that was the company line is that, no. This is played by the rules. I don't like third-party stuff. So he actually did kind of say that. Like I said, if you read the old A&E, it's really instructional about how the early part of the hobby how it developed, and how he went from this huge backer to these people that were his quote unquote fans. You read some of those A&Es like in the 30s and 40s, that's probably 78, 79. They were like, we're not going to buy AD&D. That's bullshit. We're not going to support Gary. Those were the first people that hated Gary. Were the people at Excursions.
Oh no, it was not. No. There were people in the 60s in the diplomacy and wargaming communities.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah. I've read some of those old zines. Yeah. Oh, he had his fans, but he had his detractors too.
Yes, but he was a polarizing dude. He really was, and I think we get this idea. A lot of diehards picture him as this kindly old guy, this and that. Then of course there's the people that hate him and think he's a misogynistic piece of garbage. it's like any picture of a person, right? I mean, it's like, how did you see Gary? Well, it depends on what your interactions were with Gary.
Okay, well, on that note, I have a Gary Gygax story. One of my first, it might have been the first time I went to Gen Con was when it was being held in Minneapolis?
Milwaukee,
yeah. I always get that wrong. And yeah, that's right. It was at the convention center in Milwaukee. And I was like 18, maybe 19. And I was, it was the con, it was the first time. It was like, oh my God, everything's going on. And I'm in the bar getting a Coke, and there's Gary Gygax sitting at a table. And I'm like, oh my God. So I go to the bartender and I beg him to let me buy a yard of the best beer he had so I could take to that guy over there. And I'm not 18, but you can watch me bring it over to him. It's not for me, it's for him. And you can watch me do it. And he eventually let me do it. And I gave Gary the beer, and he was nothing but gracious. I fumbled over myself how much of a fan I was, and he was nothing but very kind, very nice, very gracious. So that's my impression of Gary, is that he was just a sweet old man, very indulgent of his fans, and especially when they came bearing beer. So it was that's my Gary Gygax story. So.
No, that's a good one, man. So now Matt makes a point that nobody played by the rules in the 80s.
That is very true.
It's true. And AD&D, I remember sitting down and trying to run it as written. And we used, in those first couple of sessions, segments and spell interruption and surprise, which didn't make any sense. First thing we jettisoned was weapon speed because we couldn't figure it out for shit. I still don't quite understand weapon speed all these years later.
In AD&D, you only use weapon speed if initiative is tied. But this is one thing where I diverged from Gary's game. In Adventures Dark and Deep, the way initiative works is you roll your D6, you add your weapon speed to the roll, or your spell casting time. So, like, let's say you're casting a spell that's 4 segments, you add 4 to your roll. If you're using a weapon that has a weapon speed of 6, you add 6 to your roll. And then the DM starts counting. 1, 2, 3, I go. 4, 5, I go. 6, the orcs go. And it works. So I actually found a way to make weapon speed work. And
make it relevant, yes. I just remember, I think it wasn't clearly spelled out. And that was... I think part of the problem with 1, 2, we spelled things out better, made the game a bit more comprehensible. As a 1E player, the only way you're going to learn how to play is by being introduced by other players. Right. And then you learned that they didn't really know what they were doing, so then you tried to correct it, and then you went like, all right, we're getting rid of this part. We're not going to worry about training time because it's not syncing up for people.
Oh, I always
can't worry about
it was a way to drain off gold pieces from people.
Oh, well, we would drain the GP, but we didn't count the time. Like, oh my God, how many weeks?
Wasn't there on like night? It was either Knights and Knaves. I think it was Knights and Knaves. Years ago, they tried to do a diagram of AD&D First Edition combat, and it was like this huge thing with decision points. I mean, it's a whole flow chart, and it took them like a year before they just threw up their hands and gave up. It's like the rules contradict each other. Shadzar, I do individual initiative. All the monsters go in a single initiative, but I do the players do individual initiative. I think it just adds a lot more tactical variation to it.
Yeah, now he was up something with the caller system. Now I only saw the caller system used twice. Once was when some members of my gaming group got invited to play with college people, and there were the group of 8 plus the 3 of us, 11, and there was a caller, which meant that you couldn't say shit, especially being the teenagers at the table, and we had first level characters, and they were all 8th and 9th. So we couldn't say shit, and we couldn't do shit. Wasn't exciting. But they had a caller, and only the caller interacted with the DM.
The caller system is a relic of the way Gary played.
Right.
Okay.
And it only works in the context of you've got a group of 10 or 12 people, and you're in a big mega dungeon that you've been in 1,000 times before, and you know the route to exactly where you're going. That is the only way that a caller makes sense in the game. But nobody realized that because they never published one like that. Because they were publishing these 12, 18-page tournament modules. So nobody realized how the game was really supposed to be played unless you had learned from somebody who learned from somebody who learned from somebody who was in Lake Geneva.
Right.
But, you know, if you just bought the game and you're buying these things, you don't see a mega dungeon. You don't see a dungeon with 30 levels, and nobody at that time, well, maybe in the 70s they did. You don't have these parties of 10 or 12 or 15 people that you physically can't have everybody talking. You know, you need one person to just say, okay, we're going to go here. Oh, random monster, go here, go here. You need that mechanism, but that's not how almost anybody played in the 80s.
But it's interesting because a lot of the first, well, you know, we've talked a lot about in the past about how it came out of the war game rules, and so you have all these war game-isms in the first, you know, few years of the game. But it's really
inches. Everything's mentioned in inches.
Yes, and it strikes. It's funny because as much of a genius as Gary was, he was so myopic when it came, like you said, to play other things. Because I always remember a conversation he had with Tim Kask about publishing adventures, and that's why We Warriors published the first ever D&D adventure published. Gary didn't see any percentage. He didn't understand the whole point. It's like, why would somebody buy somebody else's adventure and go through it? You make your own adventures. And it wasn't until We Warriors went through like 8 printings of Palace of the Vampire Queen, and it's not even a very good dungeon. He's like, okay, Tim, you're right. Let's publish adventures, and that's why the first few adventures are all tournament adventures, because that's what they had at the time. They converted them over, you know, Giant Series, S1, all that stuff, S2, but well, actually not S2, but S1, a lot of the Giant Series. But yeah, he didn't see any. It's very myopic about here's how we play in Wisconsin. That's why you also, and Joe knows this, and everybody knows this, you had East Coast style, you had West Coast style. West Coast style were big Arduin dudes. You know, you talk to these guys, and they had sci-fi in their game and robots and just all kinds of just crazy stuff. It was anything goes type. Whereas the Midwest gamers were much more, we're going to stick in the dungeon, and you've got this, and you know, even the East Coast had their style. So you had these different styles developed. And another thing when you read the A&E stuff is there was a big bias towards West Coast style because Lee Gold was from the West Coast, and a lot of the people that
she's in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah. And then oh gosh, the guy's name who invented Arduin,
Hargraves.
Dave Hargraves. He was a contributor to A&E, and so Gary was not with the West Coast style. I mean, he understood. I don't think he understood it because it didn't make any sense because it wasn't how they played in the Midwest. And that was something that was really interesting when you see the game evolve like that, when they start realizing that not everybody plays like us. We're going to do other things that maybe might appeal. Now, they may have gotten too broad in their appeal because we didn't need wood burning sets or, you know, whatever the fuck else they came up with, you know, when they start, that's when they start getting big, you know, 83, 84, they start realizing, okay, we're not going to just publish what we want. We're going to start publishing what everybody seems to want here. And that's when you had D&D's hugest selling years is 82 through 85 or so, when they're like, yeah, we're going to publish all this extra stuff, not just stuff that, you know, Gary and all the old school guys, Tim thinks is great. And that's also the art improved too. The art also improved too, because like Bill Webb, they were fine with this. This isn't, you know, whatever, because that's how Bill Webb used to. Well, we used to buy Judges Guild stuff, and the art was terrible. Yeah, Bill, but that was 40 years ago. So we have to tell him now, you know, we need like really nice color covers and good stuff. Because he's like, well, I used to buy stuff that had terrible art. We know, old man. You know, just be quiet. And so,
okay, boomer.
It doesn't sell books now. We need good art now.
And it's funny that whole West Coast East Coast thing. A great book to read about that is John Peterson's new one from last year.
I just started reading it.
The Great Conversion or something like that.
No, it's it's in my car. Let me run out and grab it. No, it's yeah, I just got that through Amazon. I was going to read it before Gary Gamehole Con, so I could have
the elusive shift.
Elusive shift, yes.
And it's talking about the shift in play styles and stuff like that, but it goes into a ton of detail about the Alorums and excursions and the whole the move from the wargaming community into the fandom community, especially on college campuses. It's if you're interested in that kind of that shift, it is a terrific book.
I
just started.
It's pretty good stuff.
It's good stuff, yeah. He's got another one coming out this fall, by the way. He was talking about that. He's got one coming out this fall. So he's been kicking ass lately. He's got some good stuff.
He's one of those guys. I'll just buy whatever he publishes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did he was going to do a book on dice, right? Because I remember him doing all the research at the conventions, and he was the whole evolution of dice and RPGs and different dice than when they got released. I mean, it was pretty in depth. I remember reading some articles on his blog, and I was like, "Geez."
I've still got my game science dice, baby.
I mean, not for nothing, man, but dice was it was harder than gold when I came into the hobby. I mean, you got dice. You didn't share them with anybody. Nobody rolled your dice. If you got a second set of dice, you almost took your first set and locked it up because you didn't want. It's like I don't want to lose it. I don't want to because it was so hard to find. Not just good dice.
Joe,
dice.
I don't believe that you never heard the West Coast style. Okay? So back me up, guys. So the whole West Coast style thing was when D&D came out. Like I just told the whole thing about Alarms and Excursions. The guys on the West Coast, they were more Arduin Grimoire than they were supplements. And Arduin Grimoire, it's basically David Hargrave's booklets. If you read the booklets, they read like the supplements did. Each one had different rules. One would be about poisons or monsters, and they were just this potpourri of great ideas. But what they focused on, though, a lot of was just really weird fantasy stuff. Like you could play a robot, you could play a demon.
It was a gonzo. We would call gonzo.
Yeah, gonzo, exactly. And you could have ray guns. And so you'd have people on the West Coast who playing these games, and they got a D&D party, but guys have one guy's a werewolf, one guy's got laser guns, one guy's from a different dimension. There's a mutant over here. They just threw everything in the kitchen sink at it, and like I forget who just mentioned it. Yeah, John just mentioned they were mostly based out of the universities. There's 2 universities where all this stuff was based out of, and so it was just wild ass shit. And so it differed from regular D&D in that. So I remember reading the Arduin Grimoire back in the day because you'd look for ideas. These things had great ideas, but some of the stuff was so over the top. And Arduin Grimoire is worth getting. If you get the supplements, it's really worth getting because it's a snapshot of the hobby at the time of like the 70s. It's really what most people's individual games look like when they just threw everything. I mean, it's a very rare thing we have here, which is basically this is how somebody played the game in the 1970s. This is their rule book. This is their set of 5 rule books that they went by, and we don't have a lot of examples. It.
He actually included in the DM's guide the Vacuous Grimoire was named that because he hated the Arduin Grimoire so much that literally he called it that because he hated Arduin so much.
Gary. It was not Gary's style of play, and so Gary was, very resentful of it. Look, at this time, Gary was like in his 30s. He's kind of a young guy. He has all the flaws we have back then, and he's got an ego, and so these guys are making this game that's not his game, and they're going on in Alarms and Excursions about how it's better than D&D. It's so great. So yeah, he gets a little pissed, and you're right. He has a lot of digs at David Hargraves. I think there's even, if I'm not mistaken, there's a review of Arduin Grimoire and Early Dragon that just savages it.
I would not at all be surprised.
And because they weren't going to give him any credit at all. So that was the West Coast style. It was more like Joe said, it was a gonzo, everything but the kitchen sink kind of style. Whereas
although it's funny how things turn around, because now, just today I read that they're adding in 5th edition, they're adding like a Feywild thing where you can play a fairy or a rabbit man, fuzzy, furry, whatever. And you have the just player character races have proliferated that you wouldn't really think of as player character races back in the day, right. Despite the fact that they mention kind of in passing, oh yeah, if somebody wants to play a gold dragon, yeah, you can do this or that, but nobody did that.
Well, and the difference, Joe, was that in the DM guide or whatever they mentioned, you could play a gold dragon, and that was it. Argent Grimoire would have 6 pages on that. Like, oh, if you want to be a demon, here's how you be a demon. Here's 8 pages on, being a robot or a cyborg or a demon. Whereas you said, like, you're right, Gary just mentioned that. Like, you could be a Balor, but you have to
Judges Guild had some of that. Judges Guild was kind of like in the middle on that. Because they had some of their table, like the Ready Ref tables, had a lot of outre stuff. A lot of their the City State of the World Emperor kind of stuff. That they kind of were on the edge of that, but they didn't go quite over the edge like Arduin did.
And Dandelion Lou says Levi comes and I'm doing a podcast at Arduin in the month. It doesn't shock me at all that Levi is very influenced by Arduin. I have never asked him, but that makes sense because he has some very wild ass crazy stuff. You read some of Levi's stuff, it's pretty wild ass. And another thing that Arduin had, which I thought was really interesting, it was very lethal. It was very lethal and very unforgiving, and even more so than D&D. And if you ever get a chance, David wrote a couple of Call Cthulhu adventures way back in the early days. They are the most ridiculous TPK.
I can't even imagine what that would look like.
Cthulhu that you have ever read. One's called Dark Carnival. If you ever get a chance, look for the Hargraves written. It is ridiculous. There are several. So Call of Cthulhu did things by a percentile. So, obviously 90% is you almost always hit it, whereas most skills are in the 30 to 50% level. It's this evil circus carnival. Three of the characters there have 99% to basically hit you automatically with either rifle or there's like a knife thrower. I mean, it is ridiculous. And he also goes into extremely detailed ideas of how they've tortured some of their victims, even more than Call of Cthulhu at the time. He has one scene where you're looking for a lost boy that this circus is kidnapped. You find him, but all his fingers have been cut off and eaten by the cannibal at the circus. Now, this is like 1980. I mean, that's rough. I don't even think they'd publish that now. That's pretty over the top. But that was also a feature of the West Coast style, was that they were it was TPK would happen a lot, and it was pretty gory. If you read some of his stuff in Argent Grimoire, so I'm saying all this to say that I know where Levi Combs gets his start now, because a lot of his stuff is pretty dark, but very gonzo. So now I'm going to have to watch that, Lou. You just got me hooked. I got to see what you and Levi say about Arjun, because yes, definitely Levi's stuff. He's got. I don't know if you've ever read. Levi has an adventure. It's basically backwoods mutant creatures, and it's crazy. I can't even remember the name of it right now. But yeah, he's got, of course, one of his other adventures is basically Godzilla versus King Kong. So.
I was hoping you were going to say Godzilla versus Bambi.
Where you're on a monster island. You're on an island with giant monsters. So, yes, it's worth studying. Arduin is a very interesting artifact. It does not get enough credit, I don't think, for the development of D&D, because it was a totally separate. If you're looking at D&D, that was a branch that went off here, and a lot of things came from that branch. If you look at a lot of the West Coast designers and the West Coast stuff that comes to the West Coast, it came from that branch. That branch is just like. We're not going to follow the rules.
That is very true.
Yeah, we're not going to follow the rules, man. He's an old fuddy duddy, man. We're going to do some crazy new shit here. And like somebody said up there, yes, he probably took some LSD and when he wrote some of that stuff.
But I really think that that's an example of the less West Coast Midwest as sci-fi fans versus wargamers. And I think that's really the dichotomy you're seeing there. Mm-hmm. It's the Midwest was all about war games and miniatures and Avalon Hill and SPI and all that, and that's where they came out of, and they're very used to that kind of I have entire bookshelves about medieval heraldry and and pole. I have entire books about pole arms, whereas on the West Coast, you're seeing, people who have entire bookcases from, John Norman's Gore, or fantasy things, Conan, the original Conan novels, Fritz Lieber, all that stuff, so they're injecting all these wild, crazy, zoomy ideas. Whereas in the Midwest, because they're coming from that wargamer culture, they're more attuned to, it should be more like a, medieval setting and straight. Right. I wonder, I don't know the answer, but I wonder if the folks from Fantasy Games Unlimited didn't come out of the Midwest too. I don't know the answer.
I think FGE was more Arizona based, southern, but yeah, that's close to California, so it's right in that area.
Because they would seem to be more wargaming.
That's interesting. I'm pretty sure FG was based in southern. Like I said, I know now that their owner, creator, whatever, is in Arizona. He's been in Arizona for quite a while, so I don't know. Necessarily. And by the way, I think Steve Perrin was from the West. I don't know when he moved to the West, but I know he was a kind of a West guy. Yeah, and Lee Gold, obviously, who did A&E, championed that style. So that was huge.
SCA is also worth mentioning. One of the early issues of the predecessor for Dragon Magazine, Little Wars, they actually did a whole issue about the SCA.
And by the way, Steve Perrin was a huge member of the SA. He was one of the people kind of got it going in the 60s. It was a huge backer of the SA. So that would all tie up too. And maybe someone needs to write a book about all this. About it's really interesting when you go into it. I know we've talked about it a little bit. I would really recommend anybody that's really interested in the history of D&D. You can buy from Lee Gold. You can buy copies of the early issues of Large Excursions. The first few are okay. It really doesn't start getting good to maybe 8 or 9. I think Gary has his letter in about 5 where he just goes on. It's great. And that's when you start. And after that is when you start seeing they're doing their own thing. Like, hey, we're going to make our own character classes. We're going to make our own rules, this and that. And that's when Gary gets annoyed because he doesn't want them doing that. Now, I'll tell you, one of the people that came out of A&E that was one of Gary's absolute best friends was Steve Marsh. And Steve Marsh published quite a few articles at Large Excursions, and they became absolute best buddies. And if you read I've read some of the correspondence that Gary sent Steve, he absolutely loved the guy. He absolutely loved Steve Marsh, and would send him just these effusive, that they were going to publish Shadowlands together. That was their big project they've been working on for years. Steve still has a bunch of the letters where they talk about working on Shadowlands, but he absolutely loves Steve, and Steve came out of that whole A&E thing. But I think Steve was he was more respectful of Gary, and he was a genuinely smart guy, and he had talent. I think Gary realized that. He thought a lot of those other guys were just idiots. They're just, hey man, I'm going to have a cyborg class, and you're going to be able to be like the $6 million man do this. Well, yeah, no, Gary thought that was stupid. And that's just dumb. That doesn't belong in D&D.
And yet in Dragon and Strategic Review and Little Wars, they had all that stuff. Yeah. They were coming out with new classes. They were coming out with new spells, magic items, all that stuff that they were doing in Owl Rooms and Excursions was also being done by the TSR magazines. Mm-hmm. But it was okay when they did it.
Yeah.
It was not okay.
Because that was from the guy. Yeah, because that's from them. I mean, it's different when somebody else does it. So
right, because somebody else is building off your IP and you're not making money off it. Therefore, it's bad.
Yeah.
Whether that's right or wrong.
But I've heard Steve Marshall talk about this if you ever ask about it, because Steve Marshall was actually, he worked on Blackmore. He was hired by Gary from A&E to work on Blackmore because he'd read some A&E stuff that Steve, and so he worked on Blackmore with Tim Kask, supposedly by Arnstoff, but not really Arneson. Arneson really didn't do a lot apparently with Blackmore, but except from what Tim says, hand him a peach basket full of notes and just walked out. And he and Steve are like, "What the hell?" They're having to dig. He and Steve Marsh having to dig through these notes. But yeah.
For years, I thought that Arneson's campaign was so focused on underwater stuff.
Because they had that whole section.
What is with Dave and underwater crap? What is with his campaign? And then I heard that same story that it had nothing to do with him.
No, they're just trying. Yeah, Steve will talk. I mean, Tim, you can talk about it, but Tim might get a little crotchety. Steve will actually talk to you without getting too because Tim still has some bad memories, I guess, in that. But Steve will. I knew it was the truth when Steve backed. Let's put it this way: Tim used to tell a story at the time, and I was thinking, "Yeah, it's Tim," but Steve backed him up. So he was like, "No, it was that bad." And Steve's not going to lie to you or tell you anything it's not true.
No,
so,
Steve's humble. He's
when he said that, okay, so it really was that bad. He's like, "Oh yeah, it was terrible." But yeah, so he respected Steve because he knew Steve was a smart guy and wasn't going to say you need a cyborg class that is like the $6 million man or whatever, or a dragonfly class. I mean, it was crazy things. A&E was it was a great. Those are some great issues. Like I said, if you have a chance, get some of the back issues. I don't know how much they are, but I know that I'm glad that Legal finally started, putting some of those out because it's just some great knowledge.
I want to say that the PDF are like $5 each.
Oh, in that case, it's an absolute bargain because I got my collection because a friend lent me his. I made photocopies of all. If you can believe what a beatdown that was, and not only that, if you look at the paper. To prevent photocopying, Lee did the colors of the paper. There's like pink, and then also differentiated between each person's submission. So any one bundle would have pink papers, yellow, blue, green, orange, and so trying to photocopy that. So that's how I got my A&E collection. Was I photocopied like the first 30 or 40 issues myself. Oh, it was a beating. If you can get it from Lee for $5, that is an absolute bargain. But it is just the greatest snapshot of the early days of the hobby we'll ever have, and it gives us some of the insight into people's minds when they're playing. But I just find this stuff fascinating because it's so interesting. Because when you talk to people that were around at the time, human memory is very fallible. And that's one of the things I love about John Peterson is John Peterson does not do a lot of anecdotal stuff. His stuff is always, I research it. I found he looks for actual written stuff from that time. And that's what's so cool about something like Alarms Excursions. It's an actual written document of that time, whatever I was doing. You can't change what is written on that piece of paper. I mean, that is what that was. Whereas if you talk to, I don't know, Tim Cass, I don't want to get Tim mad at me, but I'm talking about Tim Cass.
Always mad at you, Mike.
He may tell the same story 3 different ways. Actually, Tim doesn't do that. Tim is actually remarkably the same. But but if you talk to people back at that time, they may tell the same story 3 or 4 different ways depending on what time they tell the story. Like Rob could, but because Rob would do that sometimes. Who he hated the most at TSR at the time, he'd make that person look bad in the story. But yeah, you want an unbiased point of view of how things look. That's it. That's where to go.
Eric, you can fix that.
To hijack your. Yeah, like we have.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Take his little section and just slow it down by about a factor of 3, and it'll be okay.
Have you ever? No, we don't do that. If you came on this show thinking we're professionals, you totally screwed the pooch on this. Totally.
Are you kidding? I've just started putting thumbnails on my videos that aren't just whatever YouTube decides.
Oh yeah,
I've just started doing that.
I occasionally put up an actual thumbnail. It's a rarity, but listen, I've said before, we are like public access. On cable when you were younger, like they had to put on that because you are a cable company, you must put up a public access channel to allow the public to produce material. Oh fuck, really? Yes, really, and that's us.
Well, that's Wayne's World. That was the whole thing of Wayne's World on Saturday.
Party on!
Yeah, that is definitely us.
Game on, game.
So Joe, when are we going to expect to see your next publication?
Okay, so the books from the most recent Kickstarter should be available on drive-thru in October. They will only be available as hardcovers because they're supposed to evoke the old AD&D books, with the orange spines.
Good thinking.
Right.
So I just want to make it as there'll be PDFs too. But you won't get a soft cover of that. And I'm continuing to produce videos. I'm doing 2 a week. I can't obviously match Eric's prodigious production of content. So
I can't match my prodigious production of content. Come on.
But the other big thing that I'm doing is actually off on my Patreon page, because I got my fingers in so many pies. So on my Patreon, what I've just geared up to do is I'm going to be doing quarterly adventures. And if you're on the right level of my Patreon, you'll get a special edition of the module, and it'll be like one of the old TSR modules, where the cover comes off and it's got the map on the inside and things like that. But you'll only get that if you're on the Patreon. Otherwise, they'll be published on drive-through as regular modules, and they're going to be kind of Greyhawk adjacent. In the same way that Castle Entertainment does his. They're gonna, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, kind of Greyhawk.
You might see some similarities here.
Rabbit, you might.
Yeah, Chad's are. I think that the publishing quality would be better than the Orange Spine books that were original.
Yes. Well, that's all dependent on Lightning Source. So I'm hoping. The Hamlet, Joe, the Hamlet module will be released immediately after ShireCon, because that's where it's debuting. I'm doing a prequel to Village of Hamlet, which actually takes the players from the Wild Coast to Hamlet. And that's being done up like my City of Spiders module was, and Beneath the Temple of Elemental Evil. I'm trying to make it look exactly like the modules of that era. And that will come out probably in 2 weeks, because ShireCon is in like 10 days.
Oh my God! Yeah,
I know.
Wow. Yeah.
So Joe, yeah, that's the and that'll be a free download. Any of the actual Greyhawky stuff is a free download on the blog. And if you go to greyhawkgrognard.com, you'll find a ton of free downloads in the at the top there. No, I'm not. I can't sell them. This is. All the Greyhawk stuff is going to be has to be a free download, because it's done under the fan content policy. You can't charge for them except for cost. So it'll just be a free download on the blog. I will have a couple of copies there if I'm lucky, and I will be giving them out to the people who are playing in the game. So if you're one of the lucky 5. You'll get one of these copies of a printout of the module.
That's a collectible.
Wow.
You can save it for 10 years. Cash it in.
Oh my God, I have a collectible story too.
Ooh.
So I went to Gen Con in 1985. I would have been 19 at the time. Yes, and and this was the year that they were selling Temple of Elemental Evil. They released it at Gen Con. And I was the first guy at the door, and they opened the door, and I ran up to the table where TSR was, and I bought the very first copy of Temple of Elemental Evil. Gary Gygax signed it.
Oh wow!
And maybe 30 years ago, I sold it.
There you go.
I'm like, I'm never playing D&D again. I might as well get $100.
Oh, okay. that generation, yes. I remember that time. I remember having to clean out a room so my son can move in when his mother passed, and going, I'm never going to use any of this stuff that was in this room. And I threw out all the spell compendium, and I was like, who's that? I don't need. Oh, comic books. I go, fuck it. And then now you said you go.
Yeah, so if the person who owns that now is watching, I will buy it back from you, because I'm the one who got it in the first place.
Joe, you better be going 4 figures on that though.
I'm thinking no for the $100 that I originally sold it for. That's
okay, there you go.
Yeah,
no problem. Yeah, you'll definitely see that. You'll see it again. Yeah.
And Joe, don't worry about COVID. ShireCon's a blast.
He knows. He's been there. Joe's been to ShireCon.
So where get one of those John Travolta costs.
boy in the plastic bubble. Yeah. That will be like it's cosplaying in Giant Lands, right? If we do that.
Oh.
We can get you one of those, those big clear plastic balls that you do in the ocean, and you run through them. Joe, we'll get you one of those.
Like a hamster. I got like an enclosed
like a big hamster wheel, a big hamster ball.
Well, now you mentioned Giant Lands, which is a great segue because Joe gets to help us participate in something that we love to call This Week in Stupid. And we had some stupid this week. You know, some weeks it's just dry. Yeah, we're gonna just tell you right now, we don't have a lot of stupid to go with, so
this is not a dry well this week.
This week we had a geyser. It just shot up. And like we're suddenly like Jed Clampett, we're all millionaires because the oil.
And I might actually have one to add that you might not have heard of. So
I'll let
you guys go first.
So now I have something set up that comes before Wonderfield's wonderful post, but we will get to that. So, but I have something else that was already set up on the other screen, and once I get these next two screenshots up, I'll have to get the other one set up. So I might need a few seconds to do so. But here is you're
kidding, right?
I can read it. I'm going to read it out loud. No, I can't. But here's the thing.
Fucking Christ!
All right, here we're going to touch upon the elephant in the room. If those of you remember the list about bad companies back in 2016,
the orange list.
The orange man bad list.
I was on the orange list.
Orange list.
So now we have the green, yellow, and red list. So apparently for that thread, TSR made their first comment over on the RPG site. Now, this is the first time I've ever talked about the RPG site on this YouTube channel. I don't go there often, but when I do, I probably need the shower afterwards. It's just,
oh my God,
it is its own entity. Suffice to say, by the way, they said that Tenkar would be in the red category if I actually produced anything.
I guess good. I don't know.
I don't know. Apparently,
this is a look. If you know Pundit, you know Pundit is. He's a dude. This is all going according to plan. He's been high-fiving himself all week. Why?
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody's talking about his website. He's got 1,000 new subscriptions this week. It's all according to plan. Believe.
But was it his list? He didn't make the list originally.
No, he
didn't make the list. But that's why he's high-fiving himself. He didn't have to do anything. And here we go. And he's got 1,000 new subscribers and he loves that shit. Okay, so this is his list of red. So green means these are good old boys that you need to do some business with. Yellow means like, we're not sure. Red means stay away. Bad people that do,
I'm surprised they didn't use pink.
That would have been
would have been fucking hilarious.
See, now Pundit would have thought of that. Whover posted this didn't think of that.
Pundit would have gone the extra step if it was him.
So this was posted there, and it has got an inordinate amount of discussion, mainly because it was posted by some rando, and it's made up stuff. It's just somebody posted, this is what I think these people are, and it just suddenly, oh my God, if you're the people on the red list are going on and on like, I'm so glad I'm on the red list. I don't want to be one of those Neanderthal terror, and the people on the green list like, oh, thank goodness. I mean, it's ridiculous because
it just reinforces everybody's, it's like, oh yes, they know I'm anti-woke. Oh yes, they know I'm woke or whatever it is, and it is stupid. I'd rather be. If I was on the list, I'd want to be yellow.
Because it's just
I want to be the urine color because that tells you exactly where you belong.
So anyway, this is this list, and so everybody thinks they have to talk about this. You don't have to talk about it, folks. Let me explain something. You don't have to lay down an opinion on every single subject in RPGs or OSR, whatever. You don't have to. You could just not say anything. You could just play your games and just do your fun thing and go to your conventions. You don't have to have a Facebook or a social media post where you say, here's my opinion about the list. Nobody gives a fuck about your opinion. I don't care. I literally don't care.
You know why TSR3 put up this post, right? Their first post on the RPG site. because it's a 67-page long thread, and they are like, "This is how we get known. This is how we're gonna get." They produced nothing. They have nothing on the list to produce. Well, what you don't say? Virtue signaling. Yes.
I don't like to say it, but I'm just going to say it right there. That's why all these people are coming out with comments about the list, because they've got to let you know what side they're on, and this is how, what I believe, because it shouldn't matter what you do or believe, whatever. It should be how good a game you're putting out. But no, with these people like TSR3, it's all about, hey, we don't have any product, so what are we going to talk about? Let's talk about this, because this is going to get us,
Okay, before you go into the TSR thing, let me. I got something. Because 3 years ago, before this list was even a gleam in the milkman's eye, I came out with an official BRW Games statement.
This is what I need to talk about. This I got to get him.
And here it is in its entirety. We don't care. We create games for everyone, regardless of ideology, religion, race, gender, or anything else. We don't create games to promote any political or religious or any other kind of agenda.
How dare you, sir?
We create games we think are fun. If you like tabletop games, you are more than welcome here. Whoever you are, we're creating games for you. That is the entirety of the official BRW Games Greyhawk Grognard statement on politics. I posted that 3 years ago. So...
more valid now
than
ever
the green
before.
Category, apparently.
Yeah. Woo! Okay, go ahead, Eric.
But now the reason why I'm bringing this up,
shots,
and remember, we're not talking about who's on the list and where they are on the list. It's just that TSR had to make it not just about them, but there's some things to point out about this. TSR believes that games are a form of art. Games should be protected by the First Amendment, just as any other art form.
They are.
TSR believes in the First Amendment protection of creators, and that they should be allowed the freedom to create what they want. Okay. TSR is an American publishing company and believes in championing these freedoms.
Not from
First off, here's the secret. TSR is not a publishing company. They've published nothing.
They published nothing. Yes.
They have nothing in. They haven't even announced a product yet. Well, no, they did, but they no longer have it. Okay, Giant Lands is no longer their product.
So they're like they have no product.
Oh, but I actually do have product. But but I can read and I understand certain things. But in any case. Just imagine where humanity would be. No, just imagine where would humanity be if Homer was silenced and told, you can't tell those stories. The Odyssey and the Iliad make people have nightmares about Cyclops.
Yes, he went there. He compared himself to Homer. He went
there. Yes.
Yeah, Homer Simpson, man. Jesus.
He went there.
Fantastic works of fiction have been with us for a long time. They've allowed us to explore strange new worlds. Ride the dusty plains, explore the ocean depths, ride luck dragons, and more. I've missed something. What is a luck dragon? What did I miss?
I don't know either.
I think it's a Chinese thing.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. All right. If creators are not protected, they can be filled with fear instead of wonder. Fear of reprisal, boycotts, loss of income, and cancellation. Now, I'm going to stumble on this. You're going to have to forgive me, but I'm going to try to read it as it's written. The only way that what if can overcome I can't is if the creator is allowed the freedom to ask the question, what if, and answer it freely without fear. Okay. I read it well. I read it as written. TSR is proud to be part of that rich legacy. I'm going to do a timeout. I have to time out on this.
What kind of dressing is on this word salad?
Yeah. You can't be part of a legacy when you've produced nothing. You don't have a leg. You are not TSR of the 70s.
TSR con, bro. TSR con, bro. That's a thing that hasn't happened yet, but it's definitely going to happen next July.
He's got the same 3 letters, so he must be the same as the one from the 80s.
Jeez. And we'll always...
That's how IP works.
And we'll always champion the absolute freedom of the creators that work with us. There is a certain kind of magic that happens when something is created. TSR looks forward to continuing this tradition with the creation and publication of new games and media that will bring to light the fruits of that history and plant the seeds of the future.
I'm going to wipe a tear in my eyes.
Beautiful spacious skies and the waves of grain.
Now, going to where this was forwarded to me from, this was the troll account of the former TSR social media manager, TSR Michael. This is, as best I can tell, a total troll account.
Oh, man, this guy. Yes.
This guy is fucking
hilarious.
funny as hell.
Yeah.
And his comment is, this is clearly not us. If we could write this many sentences in a single sitting, we would have published an actual game by now.
I don't know who does it, but they get a gold star, man.
Holy shit!
That's ridiculous.
I'm sorry. It took a while to get this set up. All right, we had to read through the whole TSR thing, and it was painful prose. But this is the money shot, and oh my god,
that's gold. That's just.
If this motherfucker would actually run a Patreon, I would back it because he's given me more entertainment than TSR themselves have in this whole summer of bullshitness. And now I need to take a moment to bring up the one that Mike was referring to before. So I was going to take.
This is the other ex-partner. The ex-partner now. This is Wonderfield, who is not. It's not Lanasa and Ernie. This is the competing supervillain. This is Jim Ward and Deinhardt, who once teamed up, but now they've broken off. They're like a wrestling team, you know. They once all together and they broke up, and now Ernie and Lanasa are over here, and Deinhardt and Ward over here.
Right now, I have the screenshot, Mike, but I don't have the actual words.
Right.
That was. Oh, do you have?
Yeah, I have that. Hold on.
You have it when you sent it to me. So.
Yeah, let me find it here. Hold on a second. Vamp for just a second. Let me get this.
Yeah. So I'm going to show a screenshot, and it might be small on the screen, so I might have to tell you who all is pictured on it when it comes to it. But when Mike gets the accompanying text, I think that.
So here's the text. So this is on the Wonderfield page. It said, the Giants Lands project team continues to grow at Wonderfield Incorporated. While we're not using the new TSR brand, our team is more TSR than ever. Thanks for your support. The first edition of the game finishes final editing this month and then goes to print. Boy, this keeps taking a longer and longer time to come out, doesn't it? So yes, they're more TSR than ever. And so then they go on to list a set of pictures, 16 or whatever pictures of all their
12. It's 12. And I will name the people here. Stephen E. Deinhardt IV. He's the one with the dreads.
Okay,
maybe?
Never worked for TSR.
Or whatever.
Okay.
Game designer. James M. Ward.
Okay.
Game designer.
There's one. Yeah.
Penny Williams.
There's another. She did
lead
a lot
game
of
editor. E. Gary Gygax Jr. Now he's the only one that is kind of interplaying between TSR 3.
I don't understand what he did for TSR except for the Dungeon Hobby Shop. So I'm going to say no on that one, even though he's in there because he's Gary's son and stuff. But and all the time he worked for Gary, he never published anything, which.
So I'll allow it.
As nepotistic as that company was, that's shocking. But
I'll allow that one.
We'll put him on the A. Okay, yeah, we'll
put him. Larry Elmore. Yes.
Okay, Larry Elmore does not work for Wonderfield. He did a cover. He was a contractual agreement.
It says cover artist. That's what it says.
He did a cover art. That does not make you more TSR. Look, I guess I'm TSR. Look, I've got a Larry Elmore right here. So it means I'm part of TSR now. No, that does not.
You do it very well.
No, that's not what that means. So even though Elmore did work for TSR, I'm not going to allow that one because that's all he did. He did a cover. He did work for hire.
All right, Josh Diffley, lead artist. Don't. Ralph Moore, concept artist.
Nope, not ringing a bell.
Royce Grayson, editor.
Nope, not ringing a bell.
Michael Allen Sue, legal. Now, nothing. When your last name is Sue and you work in the legal department, I think I know what your responsibilities are.
Yeah.
Wonderfilled. Tenkars.tavern@gmail.com for any legal correspondence.
Oh, ouch.
I'm
not affiliated.
Don't poke the bear.
I'm just getting ahead of the curve. I'm getting ahead of the curve. Listen,
I never met Eric before tonight. I don't know.
I disassociate myself with this, Mr. Sue, completely.
Next up, Jeff D.
Okay.
Artist.
Jeff D has explicitly divorced himself from anything to do with Wonderfield because of posts made by Deinhardt, and he has rejected any further commissions by him. I think he did some artwork for him, which was work for hire. He has stopped all the work he's doing in the future, and he said he will never work for him again. So I'm going to say no. He worked for TSR, yes, but he is not part of the Wonderfield team. Sorry.
Zan Holt. Mm-hmm. He's too young to have worked at TSR. Mm-hmm. And Steve, was it Ince? INCE?
I don't know who that is. No.
I know the name.
This is not I'm sorry. This is not more TSR than ever. The only TSR they can legitimately have said are Jim Ward and Penny Williams. The actual did real work for TSR. Penny Williams has edited for years and years. Yep. Skip Williams' wife. And she was recently hired because I believe the scuttlebutt was that Jim didn't have an editor and people saw some of the preview stuff and it was not very good, very well written. Let's put it that way. And so they had a big to-do about saying, hey, we hired a local female, whatever. And they wouldn't say a name. And actually, I guessed it was Penny Williams. And sure enough, it was. So Penny Williams, yes, she's legit. Jim's legit. And then it's stems and seeds from then on out, boys. There's just a lot of TSR there.
Now, I have to read a quote. It's up on the screen right now from Matt. It's going to be awfully hard for anyone to be more ridiculous than someone comparing themselves to the originator of all Western literature. Oh, my.
The guy's got chutzpah. Give him that. He's got some balls on him, but yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so Wonderfield, look, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to say this for Wonderfield. They actually have a product, and they're putting out said product someday. I mean, Jim wrote it, and I'm sure it will eventually come out. It is very late, but it will come out. So, yes, they do have a product that they're working on that will actually come out. And then once it comes out, we can judge it on its own merits. I'm not going to bury it now before it didn't come out. So that they have that going for them. They actually have something. TSR, the new TSR has nothing yet.
But do they have a con?
But they have a con. Wait, you mean a convention? Yes, they have a convention.
It works both ways.
Yes. I wanted to differentiate what you're trying to say, by the way. John
Miller. I meant convention.
If once you work for Wonderfield, thenceforth shall you be considered an employee of Wonderfield, yea, unto the seventh generation.
Oh, poor Jeff D. Yeah, everybody's... Yeah, Elmore's great grandchildren will be like, yeah, you work.
Once you step in the Wonderfield poo, it's hard to scrape that stuff off your shoe.
Well, Jeff did some scraping. If you read Jeff's post that time, he did not seem too happy about being.
Jeff does not hold back his opinions at all.
Jeff is very
progressive.
Oh, Ty rolls in like 2 hours late after he got they're talking all the legal stuff. Now Tyrell's in, but no, Jeff made it very clear that he wanted nothing to do with Wonderfield at this point on. It was hurting his progressive cred. Let's put it that way, to be working for him. So
right.
But
he's there on this page. Listen, look, and he's smiling. So obviously he's happy to be considered part of the Wonderfield team.
Once again, here's what we have. So they're trying to get old timers interested and say, hey, guess what? We got TSR. And I don't know why they felt like, did they think TSR was threatening to them because they had the name TSR? Like, look, we're like TSR too. We got look, there's Jim Ward and Penny and we had Elmore.
When you're trying to out TSR, who has produced nothing, all you got to do is produce something. The moment that Giant lands, even if you're expected to cosplay in plastic poncho, little activity.
Giantlands will be better than anything TSR's ever released.
By default,
it'll be great. It'll be great. It'll be the greatest thing ever released by both companies.
See, now I'm wondering why they didn't say we're the most new Infinities ish of new Infinities.
Oh God,
to infinity and beyond. No, new Infinities.
New Infinities.
Because you have to be the cyborg commando.
In all fairness, they also did put out the Gord the Rogue books, which were awesome. So,
okay, not saying, but I'm just saying, cyborg commando.
But by the way, the best story ever, Gord the Rogue books. I don't think I ever even told Eric this. I had a friend of mine I've lost touch over the last year. I need to told this guy. I lost touch over the last year. He was actually one of the first people I ever met online. 1994, bought some stuff from me. Stayed in contact for, about 20 years, and I haven't heard from him in the last 10. He was telling me a story. We're talking about the Gord the Road books. He told me the story. So he said that he's reading them in work one day. He's a cube guy. He's reading a cube, and he had this next cube neighbor who was very religious, and he had always talked about, you play D&D, that's that devil game. He's like, no, I'm going to tell you, it's not like that. And so he had spent years trying to tell this guy that D&D is not demonic, it's not devilish, it's just that. And so he pretty much got the guy kind of convinced that, it's just a different kind of game. So the guy, and
he's reading Come Endless Darkness, right?
He's reading one of the Gore of the Road books, and he goes, let me see what that book's about. So he grabs our friend's hand, opens it up, and the first lines are, Hail, Dark Lord, Hail, Grisette, Lord of Hell, Hail, and he just goes, throws it on the and walks off, and he goes, great, Gary just ruined, I've been working on this guy for years to get him to think that D&D wasn't demonic, and the first thing he reads out of a book is, basically Hail Satan. And that was it. Oh man,
I picked up, I think, the first dozen and a half in the series at some, used book place up in the Poconos. They were a quarter a piece. This is going back 25, 30 years. And I think I got through the first 6 or 7 books before I was like, you know what? I can only deal with so many rape scenes in my fiction. I can't anymore. I got to tap out.
You're talking about the Rose Estes, though.
Who is this?
You're talking about the Rose Estes books.
Yeah.
God, no.
I don't think you're talking about Gore. I was like, shit.
Gore.
No. I was talking about Gord the Rogue. I said
Gord the Rogue.
Gord. Gord the Rogue.
That's why I'm saying.
I was like, very different books. Very different books.
I was like, Gore was pretty.
No.
We can cut. If you want me to come back on another show and talk about Gore, I can do that.
It's okay. Yeah, because I'd have to go back and read them then, and I don't plan on doing that.
No, the Gore.
He's still publishing them. There are new Gore books coming out even now.
He has made so much money off that. It's just he's just a regular college professor somewhere on the East Coast. And he's one of those guys that he lived the dream. He found something that people liked. He wrote about it, and he just made $bazillion off of. I
got one John Norman story to tell.
Oh gosh.
And this is secondhand, but apparently at some con on Long Island or Staten Island way back when, John Norman was on a panel, and they were all seated alphabetically, and sitting right next to him was Andre Norton.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
So during the whole panel, she's just during the whole thing, and he is completely oblivious. He has no idea who she is.
Right.
He has no idea what she's written, and she obviously knows who he is. And it's just,
yeah.
I wish I had been there to see that.
I want a picture with both of them, Norton and Norman.
Oh my God!
I'd kill for that. I have a picture of me and Mike Carr and Merle Rasmussen. So that's pretty cool. But
nice.
Norton and Norman would have been cool too.
Eric, I sent you something for this segment on the Facebook side. I don't know if you can easily find it, but if you click on it, this came up in my feed today.
So, kids, your lesson here is gore is different than Gore the Rogue. Do not give one to your kid. Gore the Rogue is okay to give to your 10-year-old son. Gore is not really, unless one grew up kind of a really weird view about women. Stay away from the gore. Go with the gore.
The first 3 Gore novels are actually great. Sword and Planet.
Until he realized that people really, really enjoyed the pervy
Well,
stuff.
that's when then it takes off into you get pages and pages of,
it was kind of like a Barsoomian John Carter
type
thing.
It is a great Sword and Planet setting.
Yeah, Joe, I remember reading I read them when they first not when they first got, but back in the 70s. I remember reading the first 3. Like, it's pretty good. Then I'm like, something's a little different now.
And it starts to get longer.
And it just starts getting like, I can't read this anymore.
Because the books get longer and longer as you go on, and you realize that there's just as much plot, but the length keeps coming in because he keeps putting in more stuff about how women are natural slaves.
There's got to be 6 pages of how he's subjugating.
That's when I was like, I can't do this anymore.
And you just get to the point where I'm skipping through like 100 pages. I want to see the war about Kosanar.
I don't care about it's a cool setting. It's a really good setting, yeah. And then it's just like, wow, people really they're writing me a lot of fan letters, but it's all about all the BDSM stuff. It's not about this cool plot I created, this interesting world. Okay,
and there's actually an RPG.
Yeah,
there's actually a Gore RPG.
Who did the RPG?
Grim Jim.
Grim Jim. Yeah, Grim Jim. Yeah.
James.
I told Eric this story before, but back in the day, when I went to college, we had a game we played, a beer drinking game. You had to take a Gore the Road book, and I can't remember which one it was, and you had to read a page out of the Gore the Road book, and everybody that laughed drank. And you were drunk as an Irishman on St. Patty's Day.
Now, is this a Gore the Road book, or is this a Gore book?
A Gore book.
A Gore book, okay.
You had to read it and not laugh. And so, everybody there was drunk as an Irishman on St. Patty's Day about 2 pages in, because there's no way you can read that stuff with a straight face.
And everybody should look up Houseplants of Gore.
That's a great parody. Yeah.
Yes, Master, I have been well watered. Okay, so I came across this. I come with a contribution for the segment. I came across this. Apparently, there is a tabletop game on Kickstarter right now about fishing. Okay, seems pretty okay. Yeah. There's a card game. You have lures and okay, and on Twitter, apparently Twitter blew up because the image on the right shows a frog doing the OK symbol, which, as we all know, is obviously a white supremacist symbol, especially with the frog. So apparently the guy wrote sent out the one on the left, which is the original photo that the artist worked off of. So apparently frogs putting their thumbs and fingers together is a thing, apparently. Who knew?
Oh, gosh.
But he is getting such a rash of shit from people on Twitter saying, and oh my God, it's a hidden clandestine white supremacist thing in a fishing game.
Peppy the Frog and the OK symbol.
Oh my God.
He might be wearing a white hood and burning a cross, because that's what I'm saying, definitely.
Imagine being the person who's scrolling through every Kickstarter looking for stuff like this.
Well, and here's the thing. The Kickstarter is probably doing very well.
It is. It's hitting goals and stuff. It's going gangbusters. But he's getting apparently one of his designers on another game already pulled it, and it's just like,
oh man, that's hilarious.
Because they think that a frog. And if you look, it can't physically be a white supremacist symbol because frogs only have 4 fingers. So you can't.
So it's not a
do
K.
the W part. It's actually just OV.
It's OV. OV. I don't get it.
But the fact that people are looking for stuff like this.
Yes.
I mean,
people look to be offended.
I mean, I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I'm a libertarian, and oh my God, the mindset that people actually spend their time looking for stuff like this to be outraged by just baffles me.
I look for stuff to laugh at and be amused by in our community by the absurdity of it, and this is beyond absurd. It's like, I really find that a frog doing an OK symbol, it's a frog, which already tells you it's peppy, so therefore it's evil, and it's doing the OK symbol, so it's double evil, double secret evil. It's a trap. It's a trap. Don't even go there. It's a trap.
And then people are saying the guy's response wasn't like big enough. He didn't beat his own breast about how awful it was. And I'm sorry.
That's why you cannot respond to those people because you can't win. You'll never win, and that's why anybody on the red, green, blue, orange, whatever list, the best thing you can do is say nothing or not say anything because any response you give will be seen as being guilty and you're not being respectful enough or you're not, look.
Yeah, John Miller, I should commission a slod, a picture of a purple slod or something doing the thing. It's just crazy. I mean, you don't have to. It's just, why do people look for stuff to be offended by on both sides? I mean, the person who did that red, green, yellow list is also looking for stuff to be offended by.
Yes. John, the real victim is the frog.
Yes.
Yes.
That poor frog. Yeah.
It's okay, man.
He didn't. That frog could be a very progressive frog, and now he's being compared to Pepe. I mean, come on. It's not the frog's fault.
It is the frog's fault. He's a frog. He's got to be guilty. Frog is guilty by default.
I think we need to
probably
look
peed in that hand.
God Games books. I think those need to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb.
Well,
how many symbols frogs do we have?
I'm going to tell you, Joe. This is not a lie. I don't share this story very much, but yes, about once a year you get a story written about how it's very obvious how Frog Eye Games chose their symbol. Very obvious.
You're kidding. No. Please tell me that's a joke.
No. Even though I want to say that Bill started this company in 2008. It was the year before North Texas, and they didn't really have a lot of product because he just met Matt. But no, they're very sure about how Frog God Games chose their symbol, even though it was done in 2008.
I'll bet he drinks milk too.
At least once a year that comes out. It's real obvious where they got that.
I'll bet he drinks milk.
So yes,
people pack it up.
Chocolate milk is okay.
They will look to be offended.
Okay.
They will look to be offended. So yes, that's very true. And when I get sometimes customer service, you get that customer service thing, and I will send them a Wikipedia page or whatever it's about how the Frog Eye Games was incorporated in 2008. So, and then I never hear anything back from them, of course.
But it's and I gotta stress, it's not just on the left. People on the right do it all the time too. They look like, sure. Oh my God, you had a person on the cover of your thing that you said was a trans person, even though it's not at all obvious on the cover of Arrows of Indra. But you must be a secret whatever. And Eric, you're on the freaking red list. I'm
not. I was. The comment says I should be on the red list.
Should be,
but I'm not a. But apparently, I'm a blogger, so I wouldn't have. I wouldn't. I'm sorry. Listen. I was accused of banning the anti-woke from the internet. I have powers that I did not know.
That's how you know you're doing it right. You're doing it right when both sides jump all over you. That's what happens to Eric.
Yeah.
He gets beat up as too progressive, then he gets beat up as too conservative. So
that
works perfectly.
So, Eric, does that make you like the seneschal of Dictor von Doomcock? The future ruler of Earth. That you're the guy who controls all the internet access. So you're
I control. Listen, somebody, actually a concerned individual, reached out to me. This is how I found out about the list. Is, hey, did you see this list? Because there's talk that you wrote it.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah, and now,
yeah.
and
of course you
listen,
did, Eric, because you have time to do that. Yeah,
I have time to do it. If I wrote a list, it would be on my blog because I'd want the traffic. I wouldn't be giving it to fucking the pundit or something like that. But it's just like, yeah, okay, no, but I know not gonna name the person where I'm like Candyman, say my name, and all of a sudden but. There are people that I am the boogeyman to someone on the left. I'm the boogeyman to someone on the right, and I'm doing something good. If both extremes think I have not much power and influence.
So you need to have I'm your boogeyman queued up. I'm your boogeyman. That's who I am. you gotta have that queued up so you can play that every time.
No, because then YouTube will probably go, oh no. Sorry, you got copyrighted.
Yeah. Well, I know you've made enough money off of your videos. You're doubtless monetized by now. You can afford to license the real version of the song.
No.
You're obviously rolling in.
Yeah,
in coins.
I'm roping in nothing from YouTube because you don't get monetization until 1,000 subs.
Yeah, apparently we can't even get 1,000 subscribers. We got one tonight, but apparently we've just stalled out. So I'm very sad because
I'm closing in on 800.
But here's
I can't get anywhere near the 4,000 hours.
Oh, I've been there, done that. But here's the thing.
Oh wow!
No, just kicking subscribers. But Mike and I, Glenn, Joe the lawyer, we're not we want to hit 1,000 and we want to monetize, but none of us are going to make money with the monetization. We already have an idea, a plan of what we're going to do with the money. It's going to be basically for the community, and that's even assuming it amounts to anything. It probably won't initially amount to jack. The money I make through drive-through from my affiliate sales or from my stuff that I publish goes right back to either giving shit away or publishing expenses. The art wasn't cheap. People. I mean, I think I paid a very fair price for it. I think that artists are undervalued for what they do, but it still wasn't cheap for that. The cover for Swords of Wizardry Continual Light's upcoming release. So, but
that's absolutely not what he told me. By the way, he said that when they get the money, it will all be spent on hookers and blow. And now that he's changing his tune, I might need to hire you, Ty, because it sounds like we had a verbal contract that it's not going to take place here. Because that was absolutely not what I was told. I was said hookers and blow. Hookers and blow. Those are the two words that I was given when I said, "What are we going to do with the money?" So,
and in terms of
before you go
pimping the swords and wizardry thing, I'd like to pimp my stuff.
Oh, pimp it! I'm just pimping. Listen, I'm pimping James Shields right now and his amazing work.
Oh, I know. I love him. I've used his art. I love James. But,
I was like, dude, I got to buy the original. How much for the original? I need it. This is going to go up on my wall, and it's going to be fun.
So if you've seen my YouTube channel, on the intro I have a ragtime song, and I've been getting a lot of shit about it recently. So I am pleased to announce this is the world announcement of this, by the way, that I have contracted the Bards of Greyhawk to come up with a new theme song for my channel.
Oh, really?
Yes. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Soon, folks won't be they won't be assaulted by the Maple Leaf rag anymore. So, but I know all of a sudden, just all the people started complaining about it. I was like, you could just go to 30 seconds and it's, you get to the stuff. But I'm doing that, and we've talked, and it should be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to making that change. But I'm trying to do a little more of what the professional YouTubers do.
Oh, don't talk about the professionals. Come on, we're not professional.
Well, YouTube for some reason. YouTube started suggesting channels about how to make your YouTube channel better. Because this whole channel is about nothing but how do you get more views, how do you get more subs. So and suspiciously, when I got close to 1,000 subs and 2,000 hours, I just out of the blue, YouTube starts pushing these other channels on me. It's like, here's how you can improve yourself. So I've been getting a lot of bad ideas from there.
Well, we have an offer from Ty to shill us. So thank you, Ty. We will take all the shilling we can get.
A Ty's shilling is actually worth quite a bit. So yes, we will.
Yes,
definitely. Oh, Nick. Oh yeah, Nick's show. Oh hell, we'd be past 988 in a weekend. Yes, Ty, if you would do that, we'd be extra nice to you from now on.
Ty, it's Greyhawk Grognard. I actually started with more subs than Eric had, and then he lapped me.
You know what happened? Well, you know what happened, Joe? That we had the great 2 or 3 weeks when TSR games went apeshit, and that literally had 700 subs, like in what was it, about 2 weeks? That was the heavy days of.
Well, it also helps that I'm doing 1 or 2 videos a week. And Eric's got like 8 a day.
I do 1 video a day, but I do 3 live streams a week. We have Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So I mean and I'll be honest with you, I love doing the straight up videos because they're nice and short. But the live streams, here, Joe, we're going to put you on the spot but Mike and Mike will vouch for this. Almost invariably, when we bounce out at the end of this, whoever our guest was goes, man, that was fun. If you ever need a third chair again, I want to come back.
Oh, I'll say that now. I always have fun on these. I've never done one of these on any channel that I haven't just had a blast. Because even if it's not somebody like you that I've known for years,
right?
I treat them like I've known them for years. Because I'll bust their chops and I'll make jokes and I'll treat them like it's an old college buddy, and that makes it fun. Even if it's somebody that I've only talked to on Facebook a couple times. So, I always have fun, and yes, bring me back. And if you want to do 2 hours about gore, I will do 2 hours about gore.
I would need my Pepto-Bismol and a lot of alcohol to get through that. And I will probably not. If people think I stir shit on a normal basis, the shit stirring going on by the end of that with the alcohol that's going to be in me is going to be. Listen, I was told by somebody who a big YouTuber in the RPG industry, and we were talking, and he's like, I don't understand how you can do these live streams, because he goes, I'm always afraid, of doing a live stream and stepping in it, and I enjoy the live streams because I like going right up to that line, and he's like, but what about your guests? You have guests on. How do you control your guests? Well, you control your guests by picking the right guests, right? You don't, I don't have the mute button that we used to joke about when Bill Webb would join us on a Discord hangout, and somebody would always have the mute button, not because Bill wasn't saying anything inappropriate. He would give away company secrets.
Right. So know about, yes.
He'd be like, well, the next 7 projects we have one. You can't talk about it just yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was.
I got one last thing to pimp. Also on the Patreon, there is a select few group of people on Patreon. I'm going to be running a monthly Greyhawk campaign online. Really? I've never done an online game before, and it's just my way of thanking the folks who helped me make the free stuff that I can put out on the blog and on YouTube.
What?
So there's still a couple of slots open if folks want to bop on over there and pledge. But it's going to be a monthly game. It's going to be Greyhawk first edition AD&D with Adventure Stark and Deep stuff in it. It should be a blast. And if I can figure out how, I'll probably put it up on YouTube at some point.
I'm going to just say again, I've read Joe's stuff for years, and if you're going to play in Greyhawk, Joe is the person that you would want running those sessions.
You are. Thank you so much. You're very kind.
I mean, honest to God, I'm already see now. You know, if I can with my 3 live streams a week, my limit's probably 1 game a week, maybe 2. If 2 might risk my marriage. We'll see. But I'm already in Joe the Lawyer's fantasy heartbreaker of a Bronze Age setting. But otherwise, man, I don't know. I'll talk to my wife. I'll see if I can survive the adding an additional game, and maybe you might see me there.
See, but, that's my John, that's why I don't do more stuff on the YouTube channel. I don't have the time. I'm still working full. I still have a full-time job. You know, right. I'm 55. I'm about halfway to retirement. So I'm
bless you, my son. But John Miller, Tenkar's Tavern is the most fun OSR live stream and also gives that genuine tavern vibe. The content fits the channel name. That's because Mike's always drinking. Now, I'll be honest. You know, I had my Guinness glass out, right? But I wasn't drinking. It was literally hop tea, black tea with hops. Very, very tasty. Smells a lot like Goose Island IPA, which I don't drink because the carb count is way too much. But I'll take a splash of my Coors Light at the pub, and it makes shitty beer much less shitty. I can't say what kind of whiskey, Mike. Is it a good? Isn't the saying that life's too short for bad whiskey? Isn't that?
I always say that, I didn't realize that till I got about 50. Because when I was young, I would drink some bad booze. Just I got a bottle of really crappy booze here, but I don't want to pour it down the sink, so I'll just drink it, even though it's terrible. Now,
oh my God,
when you hit a certain age, like no, I'm not drinking this crap.
My son is a junior in college, and you know how over the years you just kind of accumulate bottles of liquor that people have brought over, and you don't really. So he has a party with his friends, and they just go through all of that stuff. And they're like, that was really bad. It's like, yes, welcome to college.
Yeah, college is an interesting time. That's when I started finding out, like, oh, wow, I like fuzzy navels. It's like, yeah. Now it's like I'm older. It's like, yeah, no, I'll take straight whiskey over ice. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
got more flavor going.
You learn that the older you get. Why am I diluting my booze? That's what you learn when you get older. Like,
well,
wait a second,
that too.
Why have this fancy drink over here? I'm just going to drink it straight out of the bottle over here. I don't have to worry about getting buzzed. Nah, I'm gonna get buzzed really quick with this, drinking whiskey. So, yeah, if it's not at least $30 a bottle, I'm probably out. Because it's just life.
See, I don't do the hard liquor thing. I never have liked hard liquor. Beer, mead, or cider is, mead especially. I love a good sweet mead, and I'm very happy that all the hipsters have glommed onto the mead thing because now there's a lot of mead out.
There's a lot of different ones to choose from.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, my experience with mead was always at like the Renaissance Festival in Sherwood Forest, and yeah, Renaissance Festival mead sucks.
Well, yeah, because if you're talking about Sterling Forest,
Sterling. Thank you.
They changed brands a couple of years ago because before they used to have the Bunratties, which is basically white wine with honey poured in it. But then they changed to a real mead, which is much better. Now they do Carol's.
All right, might have to go. I haven't gone in. I don't know.
I haven't gone. The last time I went, my son was about 6, maybe, and he's in college now. And I broke my rib at the Ren Fair. So the way I broke, I actually broke my rib trying to reach over the counter to get my food, which was just sitting there, and nobody would give it to me. So I was like reaching over the counter, and I put all my weight on my one rib, and it just went. And Ooh.
Oh man!
But man, I love those fajitas.
Well.
As tears are running down your face.
Yeah, as I'm like hobbling down the thing.
It was great. I'm so glad I reached over.
There's only so much love I can have for food, I guess. Breaking a rib. If I'm not literally starving, I probably don't want to give a rib for food. It's like, okay, I can probably wait.
And believe me, it was not a conscious choice.
No, I know.
So did we touch on Continual Light? We touched on Continual Light.
Yep.
We touched on Joe's project. Going to be available drive-through in October.
Great.
What's coming? What's the next Kickstarter? Can you even hint about the next?
I don't actually have a next Kickstarter in mind. It's all going to depend on what the Muse delivers. I'm going to be, frankly, a lot of my time is going to be spent on these quarterly adventures,
which is cool.
Yeah, so that's going to take up a lot of my design time. I doubt I'll have a Kickstarter-y thing next year, but I want to make sure I can hit that cadence of every 3 months I come out with an adventure.
Very cool.
Well, we've got. I'm just want to put something real quick here. If you're on Facebook and you enjoy older D&D stuff, I just started a webpage, North Texas RPG Con Auctions. If you're not already on the NTRPG Con auction, if you're not on the NTRPG Con page, join the NTRPG Con page. Once you're on that page, you can join the auction page. This is going to be our new fundraiser for the con once we get it up and rolling, which is probably about a month or so.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, the link will be in the description below, won't it?
Yes. Mike will remind me. If you're watching this late, we're not professionals, so I don't want to say fuck off, but I mean, if I can listen, I try, but
it's a private group. We'd rather you join the North Texas page first, and then from there go to there. But if you just want to go there, I'll have the link there. But we're gonna start auctioning things to finance the con and take care of some other things. One of them is going to be the Doug Ray Memorial Fund, which we're going to have set up next couple months or so. But yeah, so we're definitely going to be selling some really good stuff and also a lot of people that don't get to come to the con always ask, where can I get that? And there hasn't really been a way to get it before. We're going to be selling old backpacks. We have backpacks going back 10 years probably. Dice bags, all the t-shirts, all the old stuff we have in the warehouse that we just programs, anything we have sitting back there. We're going to finally have a place to sell that. We've been meaning to set something up for years. We just never did. So
North Texas is one I've wanted to go to for years, and we
loved it, man. Joe, you would love it.
I know
you would. Really
I drive to cons, and it's just outside of my one-day driving thing.
It is. Yeah, it's definitely outside of a one-day drive from where you're at.
I could drive to GaryCon. GaryCon is 13 hours. I can do it in one hit. Uh-huh. But North Texas is just, I need to break it up, and it's just
yeah, because
here we go.
I don't fly it again either, so I'm with you on that. And we go to GaryCon or Gamehole Con. I drive. It's a 2-day drive. I take 2 8-hour days. I don't do it in a day, so I'm with you on that. I really don't fly.
Gamehole Con is another one. I for whatever reason I've just never made it. I want to. It's it's on the list, and it's actually closer than GaryCon. So, but TotalCon is one I go to a lot, which I love. TotalCon, and ShireCon, nice tiny, 1-day deal. But the big one I've been going to lately is Historicon, which is in Southeast Pennsylvania. It's all minis. It's a mini con.
Oh, interesting.
It's huge. It's vast. It's like the Gen Con of historical miniatures, but they also do sci-fi and fantasy and anything miniatures. The huge dealer's room and everything. It is a blast. It brings me back to my childhood doing minis.
Great.
Because in college the Wargaming Club did Napoleonics, 15mm Napoleonics, and it's just it is such a great thing. That's actually where I found my my Wizards minis. You remember the Ralph Bakshi movie Wizards?
Yes.
One of the companies there actually has minis based on that movie.
Oh shit!
Yeah, they have the fight, the troopers, oh my God, you killed Fritz. They got them, they got others. It's a terrific convention. If you're at all into miniatures, it is the one to go to, and it's in Lancaster.
Okay, I could stop in the Poconos and make that trip. Yeah, when is that?
That this year it's in November. They had to push it out because of COVID. Normally it's in July.
All right, no, probably not this year because hopefully at Game Hall, COVID willing. Otherwise, yeah.
I highly recommend it. It's great. And there's a couple that in New Jersey. There's Metatopia, which is a game designers con, also in November. There's DexCon in July. There's Dreamation in February. Those are all in Morristown. So it's a lot of cons in the area.
Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Damn. We just hit the 2 hour and 15-minute mark. I think we may have struck a record here with Joe.
Okay, I'll shut up now.
No, it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with you because the chemistry was real, folks. We don't fake this shit. And 2 out of 3 of us were sober. So I mean that's maybe 3 out of 3.
Which two?
I don't know. I was thinking possibly you and I, but I don't know.
No, think again. Oh,
all right. So
I've been
lubricated ahead of time.
My mug all this time.
Oh, all right. Well, never mind. I know I'm sober only because I drank over lunchtime.
Nice.
How
do you define happiness, Sensei? Day drinking.
There you go. When you can do that. When you can have a power lunch and then go home and nap before dinner, it's like, wow, my whole day is eating. Folks, I can't thank enough for the live crowd that is very interactive today. Thank you so much. I can't thank Joe enough. We've talked about this off and on for a while. I'm glad we finally pulled the trigger on it because it was a good time.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Me and Mike always say it's like, oh, we need more new guests. Well, guess what? We're gonna have so many new guests that we can have repeat guests, and it's not gonna seem like repeat guests because we have so many guests. we're not like those two shysters on Damn It Zach, right? God damn it, Zach.
Yeah, GDC, whatever they do, I don't know.
Yeah, we get a little bit better, higher quality, not better production quality. I will say that, but we have a higher quality of guest.
Oh, higher quality of everything, but yes, definitely.
Not production. No.
No.
The host might be better here, but I mean, I'm just saying.
Much better. God. Yes.
Well, if you ever have another hole you need to fill for a guest,
Joe Bloch is one of the leading lights of the OSR. There you go. You can take that and put it on your blog, Joe.
It's already up. I will. Trust me, by the time I'm off of here, that will be on the blog. Thank you so much, John.
All right, folks. Listen, as I end every cast, we're in the midst of the world of COVID. Nobody on this cast is a medical professional. We are not giving medical advice. All I'm going to say is use your common sense. All right? Take actions to keep yourself, your loved ones, your family, your friends, your community healthy and safe. Ignore the talking heads on TV, on YouTube, wherever. Talk to a medical professional. You know your situation better than anybody. You know your health better than anybody. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. And I'll be back tomorrow with just a regular cast. Friday night, 8 p.m., Joe the lawyer and myself. Saturday, 8 p.m., it's going to be 9/11. So I'm sure we'll have some... I'll be talking about it with my wife, Rage, for Gamers Health. If you don't want to hear about it, give me a warning right now. 9/11 is going to be...
Yeah, I was on last week about and we talked about that. Yeah, that's...
Yeah. So, again, folks, thank you so much. And we're out of here. Latest.